On June 13, 2025, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, intending to remove Iran's capability to develop nuclear weapons. Soon after their campaign started, they claimed air superiority from the western border of Iran all the way to Tehran. But that dominance was not won in the sky, it started on the ground. Specifically with a weapon called the Spike that was originally designed to destroy tanks and has been in service since 1981, and small drones that they built inside the country. Using pre-staged launch systems placed by Mossad commandos, encrypted communications networks, and trucks loaded with drones, Israeli operators took out Iranian air defenses without being anywhere near them, opening up the skies to fourth-generation non-stealth fighters like the F-15 and F-16 to do as they please.
Before we dive in, a quick thank you to Odoo for sponsoring today's episode. If you're still juggling spreadsheets, sticky notes, and 6 different software platforms just to keep your business running, stop. There's a better way. Odoo is a fully integrated business management system built to handle everything from the sales floor to the shop floor. Let's start with inventory. Odoo's inventory dashboard gives you instant clarity, receipts, delivery orders, point of sale transactions, you name it. You'll know what's in, what's out, what's late, and what's back ordered all at a glance. You can automate vendor reminders, set deliveries, and pay for receipts in just a few clicks. Whether you run a garage startup or a multi-warehouse operation, Odoo helps you move faster and smarter. And when it comes to manufacturing, Odoo's dashboard puts your whole production line on one screen. Track work orders, monitor assembly stations, and keep an eye on load times. Use the mobile barcode app to scan components in real time, cutting down on delays and input errors without ever touching a keyboard. Need to tweak your bill of materials or reference a worksheet? It's all built in and it's all synced. And here's the kicker, it all works together. Sales, e-commerce, CRM, inventory, manufacturing is not just integrated, it's seamless. So if you're ready to stop duct taping your business systems together, head to odoo.com and get your first app totally free. No credit card, no trial period, just powerful tools free for life. You've got enough to manage, let Odoo handle the rest.
This was a lot more than just a successful strike. Like Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb, it was a complete rewrite of how a conventional military can achieve its objectives using unconventional tactics from deep inside enemy territory without putting hardly any of their own at risk. We won't know all the details of how this happened for years, if ever, but thanks to Iranian state media reports and releases from Israel, we now have a pretty good idea of how this all played out. So let's talk about why they use drones and spikes, how they use them, and what this did to Iran's ability to defend its skies and retaliate. We really need to talk about why Israel, with their F-35I Adir variants, which is the unique version made just for Israel, and standoff munitions, would even bother going through all this trouble with setting up spike missiles and drone factories in Iran in the first place. The answer lies, at least partially, in Iran's geography, but also in the capabilities of those F-35s and what Israel wanted to accomplish in the opening hours. At just under 1,500 kilometers, or about 930 miles from Tehran, their aircraft have to fly over Syria and Iraq to reach the country. This brings the risks of early detection, which would spoil the element of surprise, and that's something you want when you're trying to eliminate enemy air defenses. That distance also exceeds the limits of the Adir's 770-mile combat radius, meaning they can fly out 770 miles, complete their mission, and then fly back before running out of fuel. There is speculation, with nothing confirmed yet, that they have added additional fuel capacity, whether that be conformal tanks, meaning they're nice and smooth and kind of like hidden on the aircraft, it's kind of hard to see them sometimes, or drop tanks that are attached to an external hardpoint, or even extra storage in the weapon bays to extend the range. Of course, the conformal and drop tanks would mean they sacrifice some stealth characteristics, and the weapon bay one would reduce internal payload, forcing some ordnance onto hardpoints, or just having less weapons on board. And then if you put them to hardpoints, you're right back at the stealth conversation. Israel does have aerial refueling capability with 7 modified 707s, and they did use them in the operation, but 7 is not enough for an attack of 200 plus aircraft like we saw on the opening strike of Rising Lion. Since Israel aimed to take out ballistic missiles and launchers early to soften any retaliatory attacks, they need bunker busters like the GBU-28 and 78 to take out the ones stored underground. As far as anybody knows, the F-35I is not set up to drop those, though this could be a new capability, but nothing has been confirmed. That leaves the F-15 and its lack of stealth to deliver these, so taking out key air defense sites before these got over their targets was key. If they really wanted to hobble Iran's ability to launch ballistic missiles and drones in a retaliatory attack, they would need to hit a lot of targets within basically minutes of each other, and that's not an easy thing to do. Using expensive standoff munitions and other guided bombs could have stressed their supply, but they do have lots of cheap JDAMs that are just as good so long as you can get over the target to drop them. These limitations left them with a few choices. One, they could take out air defenses with aircraft in the first wave using standoff munitions, but then a large counterattack in the form of ballistic missiles and drones could be mounted or prepared, or, and please, I'm really oversimplifying things, but we don't have the hours to go over every option, as much fun as that might be, or they could take out the air defense sites from inside the country. Obviously, they went with option 2, or else we wouldn't be talking about this today. Smuggling things into Iran is not something new to Mossad operatives, and they kind of had the playbook already going, but for this, they used a lot of the same things they probably already did before, which is suitcases, briefcases, components hidden in shipping containers, trucks, tires. I mean, you've seen the videos of how people smuggle things. You name it, they probably used it to get this stuff inside of Iran. Iranian media have even reported that they discovered a 3-story building in Shah Array near Tehran that was used as a drone factory by Mossad operatives. This was a significant operation stretching back to who knows when, but it is obvious that Israel has had a plan to take out Iranian targets like this for a while. Ukrainian officials have said that Operation Spiderweb, which is similar in nature, had been planned and built up for 18 months. This portion of Rising Lion seems even more complicated than Spiderweb, and given Iran's current footing and, distrust of Israel, getting things into the country is not easy. The spikes manufactured by Israel's Rafael Advanced Defense Systems were the non-line of sight version, which is more than just an anti-tank weapon. They have a range of 32 kilometers or 20 miles on land and can be operated remotely. In imagery from Iranian media, we see how the spikes were set up, though we don't know where exactly. You can clearly see the launchers, minus their missiles, set up and connected to communications equipment. The modem depicted is a Moxa IO Mir, I think it's the 3200 series, and it's manufactured in Taiwan. They are an input-output modem that uses an IP network like cellular or satellite and can transmit essentially anywhere so long as they're connected to a network. While they don't have onboard encryption, they can easily be configured to route traffic through a virtual private network or a VPN. If you're not familiar with the VPN, even if you've used one, you may not be familiar. A VPN is kind of like a tunnel or like a really secure envelope. So when you send information out on the internet, you send it out in what's called a packet, which is kind of like a letter. But like if you send a letter through the mail, if the envelope is, just a plain white one and not those security ones, you can kind of see in it and see what's going on. Well, what a VPN does is it doesn't just surround the information with the secure envelope, it completely hides the origin and the destination of the packet. So if you're in Iran and you're, monitoring networks, you can see all this traffic that's on your network, but you can't see where it's coming from or where it's going or even what's inside, because everything inside of it is encrypted and only the person on the other end can see it once it's delivered to them because they have the key. Anyways, these modems can receive the input and then transmit back, but make it so that people monitoring the network can't see the origin or the destination like we just talked about, thanks to the VPN. With a 20-mile range, the launchers had to be placed relatively close to their targets, And in videos posted by the IDF, it looks like they took out a radar and some surface-to-air missiles. One thing we really don't know is how many spikes were set up, where they were set up, and all that, so they only pictured a handful of them, but for all we know, they could have been all over the country, and no one's talking about it. When the time came, these systems were activated remotely, and the Israeli operators, likely sitting in hardened control rooms far outside Iranian borders, sent the Fire-Z Missiles command using a network, whether that be satellite uplinks or Iran's own cellular networks. Once airborne, the Spikes operator guided the missile manually, steering it to the target. This implies that the operators knew where to fly the missile and that they weren't just flying around looking for stuff to hit, which is further evidence of how thoroughly compromised Iran's defenses were even before the attacks. They had already been destroyed, they just didn't know it yet. Then, in a 1-2 punch, small drones launched from modified trucks and shipping containers similar to those in Ukraine's spiderweb took out more radars, surface-to-air missiles, and other targets like ballistic missiles and launchers across the region. Israel isn't being as forthcoming as Ukraine was about how they were piloted to the targets, but as we've already established, they could remotely operate the weapons. These drones and others used in the early hours of the operation also helped to flood Iranian radar, masking the incoming aircraft. Just mere minutes after the Spikes and drones did their job, and with the air defenses subdued or massively degraded, over 200 Israeli aircraft descended upon Iran, striking more than 100 targets in the opening wave. They went after not just additional SAM sites and ballistic missiles and launchers, but sites linked to nuclear production as well, including some that are underground. They also targeted, controversially, Iranian scientists and other officials working on the nuclear program, and senior leaders of Iran's military, including Major General Hossein Salami, the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and Major General Mohammad Bagheri, Chief of Staff of Iran's armed forces. This removed the most critical component of Iran's command and control, basically paralyzing any response. One of Israel's objectives was to remove, as much as possible, the threat of a large counterattack, and it appears they did that. The initial response, dubbed Operation True Promise 3 by Iran, only managed to get about 200 drones airborne, which were almost entirely defeated by Israeli and US interceptors. Compare that to True Promise 1 in April of 2024, where Iran launched 170 drones, 30 cruise missiles, and 120 ballistic missiles, according to Israeli officials. True Promise 1 also had Iranian proxies in Iraq, Lebanon, and Yemen launch 350 rockets toward Israel. This time around, though, the proxies are pretty much entirely silent. Many of the air defense systems taken out will be difficult or outright impossible for Iran to replace, and Israel won't have to work as hard to keep control of the skies from now on. Because of Israeli jets having pretty much free reign over the skies of Iran, at least the western part, they're having to go to use longer range missiles, which are more advanced, fired from deeper inside the country, which is to the east. This digs into their supply of these more advanced weapons, and Israel is slowly but surely expanding their control of the airspace and thusly their ability to strike those longer range weapons. I have no idea what could happen by the time you watch this. The US could have dropped a couple of GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators or MOPs from B-2 bombers, destroying the Fordow facility and basically gutting Iran's entire nuclear program, or who knows? Maybe the aliens have invaded and we have finally learned how to get along, like how Reagan and Gorbachev agreed to put aside each nation's differences in the event of an alien invasion at the 1985 Geneva summit. Regardless, how Israel took out Iran's air defenses is another wake-up call for the United States and others, just like Spiderweb. Typically, suppression of enemy air defenses, or SEAD, has been one of the riskiest missions in warfare. If you ever want to have nightmares about this kind of stuff, just read up on the wild weasels of Vietnam and the absolute hell that they went through. It often involves baiting surface-to-air missile systems into revealing themselves, which means they see you, but you see them, which means they can also fire at you, and then striking with anti-radiation missiles or electronic warfare. Israel accomplished Seed like it was playing on easy mode though. They didn't need stealth bombers or cruise missiles to open up the door into Iran's airspace. They used a few relatively small, smart, networked missiles and drones launched covertly from inside enemy territory and controlled from outside of that territory to destroy the very systems meant to stop airstrikes. This attack required no pilots, no jets over hostile territory, except a little bit later on, and no large-scale logistics footprint. From an investment standpoint, it was pretty low cost, low risk, but high impact. And that's what makes it so replicable. This kind of operation doesn't require a superpower military. It requires access, creativity, and command of networked precision-guided munitions, capabilities that more and more militants and militaries have than ever before. So, once again, let's keep an eye on how the United States responds to any of this, because obviously, Israel and Ukraine are not the only people that are capable of pulling this off. Savvy edited the video, and I wrote the script using information from CSIS, RUSI, The War Zone, The Aviationist, Task and Purpose, which is us, and Iranian and Israeli state media. Thank you all for watching, and please, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and subscribe and like, and maybe share it with your friends. And if you didn't like it, but you're still watching for some reason, I genuinely don't know what to tell you, but thank you anyways. I'm Kyle, your friendly ginger producer man. You are all dismissed, and I will see you next time.